Okie dokie.
Hello,
I know what
everyone.
I need. I need another book.
Okay, you need a pro show and another book. Did you think about either of
Pro
this?
show.
Yeah.
That's right.
You want to talk about Mac stock? Because we didn't talk about that yet.
Sure. We could do that.
Because if
Feels
I'm
like so long ago.
okay, it was only like 2 weeks ago. Am I right?
It was mid-July. So
No.
yeah, I guess you're right.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's only July 3rd, so it
We
wasn't
could
that
talk
long
about
ago.
that. We could talk about yeah.
I know. We should talk about politics. That's always a great one to talk about.
I have a VA. We could talk about the things I'm
Yeah?
delegating to a VA.
Let's do that. Let's do that. That's great.
Okay. I mean, if you really want to learn about or hear about Mac stock, happy to do that too. But
No, the VA one will be fun and it fits in the theme of the show, so I like that a lot. So I'll add that while you think about your book. Mike's.
I actually know what the book's going to be. I just want to check the recommendations quick.
Okay.
That get piped into Notion.
Okay.
Book. Oh, let's see. Where's that? Recommendations. Okay. It's just called recommendations.
And your YouTube link is.
Oh,
is good
goodness, Micah. The very first one in here is a recommendation for an Audible book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Dude, I'm in. I mean, we don't have to do it on Audible.
There's so many things wrong with that.
I know, but you know
One,
what?
it's fiction. Two, it's audio. I mean, come on.
I mean, Mike, this might be the time to expand our universe.
No, it's not. I already know what it's going to be. I'm just looking at the other ones that are in here. We have quite a few actually that are in here. Okay, so it looks like some of the newer ones were inspired how to create tech products customers love. No thanks. Actually, that does sound interesting to me, but I don't know that it would be interesting to the bookworm audience. The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. I'm actually really interested in that one at some point.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too.
Shift, managing your emotions so they don't manage you. That one I think also would be interesting. And then the other ones are older. Actually, Shift was recommended multiple times by, same person. Doesn't count, Mark. Sorry.
Mark. Multiple.
But I know exactly what it's going to be. So it came up last time. See if you remember what it is.
Okay.
Do you remember what book I suggested? I even asked you, like, do we need to cover this for Bookworm? Do you remember what it was?
Hold on. Oh man, it's like right on the tip. Oh, The Goal. It's gonna be The Goal. It's got to be The Goal.
It's The Goal.
Yes, I get to read The Goal again.
I feel like I gotta throw you one because you do that for me frequently.
Well,
and I was just listening to the Nathan Barry Show. It's one of my favorite podcasts because he really thinks in like creator systems. Okay, gotta know what I'm looking for here. And the episode that he was interviewing the person who was on, they brought up The Goal and about how great it was. So it keeps popping up on my radar. And
do you remember a long time ago that they
40th anniversary? But
yeah, do you remember that a long time ago they talked about the E-Myth Revisited?
Yep.
Mike and Gray, I think, read it or whatever for Cortex, and like they talked about how terrible it was, and they wouldn't follow any other. Didn't they talk about that though?
They did, but I completely disagree with their take on it. I thought it was great.
And my thing is like, I feel like The Goal is one of those books that you have to read. Whether you love it or you hate it, it's just got to be in that. I've read that book. Yeah. I understand.
Now I got to find it back there. Yep. But that is a problem for future Mike.
Oh, how's the move?
It's, man, our house is on the market.
Yeah.
I can actually share the listing if you want to see it on Zillow.
Okay.
Actually, I probably shouldn't do that live on YouTube, should I?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that live on YouTube. You should send it to me via messages or something.
Okay. Yeah, showings start Thursday, And by the time I get back from North Carolina with Joshua, hopefully we will have an accepted offer. We priced it pretty aggressively, I feel,
Hold on. Aggressive to sell or aggressive to make money?
to sell.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So like we listed it, I think it's like 459, and Zillow has like, you want to make an offer on this house, you want to make a strong offer, a good offer, a fair offer, whatever, like the chance of you winning it. And the like good offer with a 90% chance of winning keeps going up. And now it's saying that you should make like a $486,000 offer, which is 26,000 more than we listed it for.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we listed it at market value, but just it's kind of a unique house, nice spot, no traffic, nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I can't imagine that it doesn't sell well and fast. Like you're in
here's hoping.
You're in a good neighborhood, and you had pretty good access to like
Yep.
main roads, if I remember. Right?
Yep. Yeah. So I feel like a big part of the push is done because we got the pictures done. All the showings and stuff I think are going to happen this week when Rachel and the kids aren't even here. And then the closing date, we have flexibility moving into the new place, so that should be fairly simple.
Nice.
Okay, so here's the name of this book. I'm going to add it to the outline.
For anybody on the live stream, sorry, I distracted Mike. I asked him about his house.
You did.
So
you did.
That's what you get for being here early.
That's not early. I'm just running like a chicken with my head cut off. Okay. Yeah, I have to record this. I have to send my newsletter. I have to write a video script and record a YouTube video before I go to bed tonight because we leave at like 5:30 tomorrow morning.
Hang in there, man.
Gotta stay ahead.
I say, so if this is an hour and 15 instead of an hour and 30 or 45, that's okay.
Yeah,
I understand on that one.
We'll see. I think we'll be all right. I had every chapter in the outline because I don't know how else to do it.
I don't either.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have to hit them all though. Like we could hit.
Yeah, let's just see how it goes. I mean, yeah. I think we hit every chapter, but some of them can be real short.
Yeah, real short. Okay.
Okay. So we got a pro topic.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a book for next time. Audio hijack is open. Think I am ready to push buttons.
I am ready when you are.
All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1.
Levels.
I'll get on the live stream.
Yeah, the live stream has been running, and I checked it on Patreon, so it's good.
Cool. All right. Then here we go. So last episode, Cory, I mentioned that I hired a VA, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. So wanted to nerd out about that a little bit with you for the pro show, if that's okay.
That sounds great. I'm excited to hear about this, and I'm jealous of your decision, maybe? I don't know.
So I just kind of dropped this on you in passing in the last episode. Yeah. What questions do you have, first of all? And then we can go from there.
Yeah. How long have you thought about hiring and VA, just so I make sure I'm on the same page as you and the internet is on the same page as both of us, is virtual assistant, correct?
Yep.
Okay. How long have you thought about having a virtual assistant?
Years.
Okay. I thought so.
Yeah. So I would say years, even in the most recent iteration, because I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I tried it previously and it failed, but it was totally my fault. I was too particular and I wasn't documenting enough. I feel like I'm a very different person trying to delegate work now. I've got a much better understanding of how to do this successfully. And yeah, so I've been dragging my feet on this for a while though, because I failed so spectacularly on it the last time. And in the back of my mind, I was worried that the amount of time it would take to create the documentation and get my assistant up to speed where it was actually saving me time was going to be more than it was worth. This time I went into it with my eyes open in terms of how much effort it's going to take at the beginning, but then also decided to do it at probably the worst possible time in terms of having extra time and capacity to help them with things.
Yeah.
But she's been working with me now for 2 full weeks,
Okay.
and it's going pretty well.
Okay, so my next one is, you've thought about this for a really, really long time. What was the catalyst? What pushed you over the edge? What made you go, okay, it's time. I've got to make this choice right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm an internet creator, right? So I create things, and mainly I've been creating a YouTube video. I try for every 10 days. It ends up being more like 1 or 2 a month lately. And then my newsletter. Those are like my 2 big things. The podcasts that I do, I feel like those are supplemental, but they're not like the thing I absolutely have to do on a regular cadence in terms of what am I actually going to talk about. That's the newsletter I've long described as my most important product. And I realized that the newsletter and the YouTube channel kind of link together because usually when I have an idea for a YouTube video, I'll write about it first. I'll experiment. And so my newsletter ends up being sort of like a work in progress for some of the things that become the videos for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, yeah.
But other than those two sort of sometimes being linked together, I don't repurpose my newsletter anywhere else, and I feel like that has been I'm leaving a lot on the table there. I've created the systems. I've even like vibe coded specific tools that would help me create LinkedIn carousels and have things so that I could schedule them, but I just don't have the mental bandwidth to schedule them consistently. So I feel like I should be on LinkedIn. I should be on Instagram, and I'm not, just because it feels like I don't have the time, but really I feel like I don't have the mental bandwidth to do that one more thing.
Okay.
And so she's helping me, first of all, with kind of social media content management. That was one of the things that I liked about the person that I decided to work with, was they had experience with this, and they had built their own systems inside of Notion. They have experience with Claude, and a lot of them had experience with ChatGPT, but Claude is the one that I use. So we're kind of creating the skills for, like, here's the newsletter text. Go ahead and break this apart. This is all stuff that I've written. Now break it into these bite-sized chunks so we can schedule it for social media. She creates like an idea dashboard inside of Notion. I go through that and I edit it all. And then we load it all up into Typefully and we schedule it. And for the last couple days, as we were recording this episode, I've been actually publishing things on social media, and that's because I have an actual person who is helping me with this and says, hey, I need you to review these things before I can schedule them. And I feel like if that's all that she ever did was help me do that, like get more eyeballs on the things that I'm writing, it's totally worth it. But I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how she'll actually be able to help me with stuff.
Yeah, you answered my next question was, all right, so you think about this, and it's not just Mike wants a virtual assistant. There's a business that we're driving here, and we need to think about, like, how does this person play into the business, and how do they get a return on investment, and how do we do all that stuff? So you kind of answered it as, if nothing else, get more eyeballs on your content. Was there another metric, or is there a metric that you're going to look at in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, a year, and go, this is what paid off? And just so you know, like, I'm totally fine if you say, I just want to learn whether or not this is helpful, and I'm willing to commit the resources to learn whether or not this is helpful. But I'm curious if you have another metric that, like, you're driving for.
Not really, but we are building out. One of the things that she's going to do every Monday is log the number of followers, subscribers, whatever, on the different platforms. And the thing that got me to finally do this was I'm in a couple of different creator masterminds, and in one in particular, I keep hearing from people, you should be on this platform, you should be on Substack, etc. And I just don't have the bandwidth to show up those places.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to share stuff there. We're going to keep track of the amount of traction that we get from those places. I've kind of vision casted and communicated that these are borrowed attention platforms. And what we want to do is we want to get people to do something with a lead magnet so that they get on the email list so we can reach out to them directly in the future. And so we'll keep track of, opt-ins for the email list and as well as the followers on the specific platforms. I feel like there's really no end to the amount of tracking and optimization you can do with this. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could have UTM links with all things that we share, so we really know which posts are driving traffic to which specific lead magnets. We'll get there. Right now, I just want to be those different places talking about the stuff because I'm not currently.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, my last one I have on top of my brain is, how does one find a virtual assistant? Like, where did you look? Did you look in the networks that you
Yeah.
already have or that you've created? Did you look in the library? Did you post it just randomly on Indeed and LinkedIn or whatever? Like, how did you go about finding somebody?
Okay, so great question. I have helped people get assistance via Indeed in the past. And so I don't think that that's necessarily a bad platform. I wanted someone with capacity to grow to full time. So actually, I just hired full time from the beginning, and I did it using a service called onlinejobs.ph. So it is a virtual assistant platform from the Philippines, and the thing that I have learned about this is that in the Philippines there are a lot of people who actually want to be virtual assistants because they can make more. Their cost of living is lower than we have here in the US. So that's kind of like their preferred career path.
Okay.
And so if I was viewing this through the lens of, I'm going to hire somebody hourly, pay them a US rate, I'm not in a position where I could hire an assistant for who knows how much longer. But because I can do this in a way where it makes sense for them and it makes sense for me, we can kind of grow into this. The service, what it does is it's sort of like a job board where you post what the position is, what your pay range is. They've got different independent contractor templates that are contract templates that you can use, all that kind of stuff. So they give you the resources that you need to actually make the hire, but the person that I'm working with, I have a contract with them, not with onlinejobs.ph.
Okay.
So the job board does a couple of things. They help you write a good job post, and then they show it to everybody. And everyone who is looking for a job on that board has a certain amount of points that they can use when they reply to an application for something that they're interested in. They get like 10 points a day. And so if they really like your job posting, they may give you 5 points. Or if they're applying to a whole bunch of jobs, they may just do 1 point each. Okay. Right. So one of the things that caught my attention with the person that I decided to work with was they put 25 points on the application.
Oh, wow.
And I did a call with them and I was like, why did you do that? Like, what is so interesting to you about this particular position? And we kind of hit it off on the call, felt like I could work with her pretty easily. And that has been the case. I mean, there's certainly bumps along the way and we gotta figure out certain things, but yeah, I went into it, thinking that I'm going to use this as the starting point, and then they want the opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, absolutely. I want a business partner who is going to help me make sure that all these trains run on time. So if I'm able to delegate more and more to you, and I don't, I have more time and bandwidth to do the thing that only I can do, which is show up on camera and create stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then as the business does well, we can certainly look to increase the pay. Interesting things about hiring through the Philippines. I came across this concept of the 13th month. So
Okay.
this is basically like they have. I'm paying them weekly right now through Wise, I think is the payment platform.
Okay.
And then eventually, after 3 to 6 months, whenever I'm comfortable with it, I guess, then we can switch to monthly. But at the end of the year, basically, it's like an expected bonus where it's a whole month of salary around Christmas time,
Hmm.
which again, like I had no idea this was a thing until I went through the online jobs at PH, and they had like basically a course that walked you through all of the expectations. They've got different tips and tactics for how you should, define the work to be done. They can't guarantee that it's going to be a smooth working relationship, but they basically do everything that they can to set it up for success. So, um, yeah, it's been great having somebody who can actually help me with some of this stuff. I know they're nowhere close to full time right now. I'm paying them full time anyways, and they know that just I'm the bottleneck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As we figure out the business systems, as we create the documentation, then there'll be more that she's expected to do. But we went into it with kind of like expectation setting. I'd love for you to put together this log of how you're spending your time, not because I want to micromanage it, but just understanding, I asked you to do this thing. How long did it take you? So as we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out, what's actually worth doing, we can make those decisions. She's like, yeah, that makes sense. She's had a lot of great ideas for creating documentations and SOPs. She actually just put one together and she's like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, that template looks fine to me. If you're gonna, whatever is you're comfortable with, if that helps you actually make more of these for us, then yes, let's use
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. That's great. Yeah,
I
that's
think the other
great.
big thing that has made it successful so far is that every time she gives me something to look over, I use Screen Studio on the Mac and I record a feedback video.
Mm.
So she'll put together a LinkedIn carousel and I'll go through it and record like a 5 minute, it's sort of like a Loom style video. I like this. I don't like this. I would change this, that sort of thing. And she loves getting the feedback. So I feel like we're in a good spot now. I guess we'll come back in a couple months and see if it's still
Yeah.
still working. But I feel much better about it this time than I did last time.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's great. That it seems like a really good and necessary evolution of your creator journey and your creator business, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And I realized that in the past I've kind of dragged my feet about hiring somebody to get help, but I sort of had this limiting belief that whenever I hired somebody for a position, they needed to be full time. And I sort of realized I've got a couple video editors already who are part time independent contractors. Um, and I could have done the same thing, so I guess with an assistant, but I kind of forced myself to think inside this box in terms of what this looked like and how much it would cost. And the minute that I let go of that and started looking for other options, it was kind of crazy how many I saw.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, good. I'm glad. I'm excited to hear about it in a couple months and to figure out what you think. And hopefully everything is going super smooth and there's no issues at all.
I hope so. One of the other things I should mention that I think is making this really work is that AI makes it really easy to design the tools that we need.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I had a LinkedIn carousel generator that I built with you select the template and you can put in the text and you can use markdown styling, but you can't actually fiddle with the text on the slide. You just put in the text and it puts it on the slide.
Hmm.
Right. So I had that tool and I wasn't using it. So I was like, I built this, maybe you can use it. And I went back to Claude and I said, hey, can we put this on the web so that my assistant can use this? And sure enough, 10 minutes later, I've got a web-based version of it. Just today, I added a feature where she can create those slides and there's a share button now where it creates this URL and then that can be shared with me. I can open that and I can see what basically it's like a project that she created for the carousel. But then I
Hmm.
can go back, I can go into that because my tool and I can edit the text and make it, exactly what I want. Send it back to her. She can finish the visuals that she adds to the slides and get it scheduled in Typefully. So like
Wow.
basically all the things that I've ever wanted to do with custom software, I can do now.
You're doing now.
She's
Yes,
like,
I
hey, it would be cool if I could do this. And I'm like, give me 10 minutes. Let me see if I can figure it out.
Yep. I think I figured out the reason why you're not posting more than every 10 days. It's because you're building all this custom software, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be.
But
I
it's
choose to think of it as an investment
oh, absolutely.
rather than time wasted, but
Oh, I don't think it's
I
time.
guess
I
we'll
don't
see.
think it's time wasted at all. I think it's your. I mean, think about it. Your world is practical knowledge management and like developing, helping people develop into better versions of themselves, right? So it's like those tools and adapting those tools for what you want them to do is part of that. Like it's a huge part of that, and it's a relevant part of that right now, like our world right now. So, no, I don't think it's a wasted time at all. I just think you're I think you're on the cutting edge, the front edge of like pushing these things to do productivity things and not just, make a silly widget over here and make a silly widget over here. You're like actually building like legitimate things. So that's pretty
Maybe
cool.
I've got some silly widgets probably too.
Well, yeah, I mean everybody does, right? Like that's you got to have silly widgets. But you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're doing it more intentionally than other folks are, I think.
sure. That's what I'll tell myself anyways.
Yeah.
All right, ready to talk about a book?
Let's talk about a book.
All right. All right. So, did you figure out what you are going to be optimizing for, Cory?
No, Mike, this is a sad face for me on this one, and here's why. I didn't figure out what I'm optimizing for. I figured out that I'm conflicted in what I'm optimizing for, and I don't know how to solve that. Right? Like I know what I want to optimize for, and then I know where like my time and attention naturally goes, and unfortunately, those two things are not aligned. So I don't really know what to do with that. And I've been kind of like thinking, it hasn't been like super long since we recorded the last one. So I haven't had like a lot of time to process on this, but I know that's a problem. It's a problem what I'm actually optimizing for and then what I want to be optimizing for. And then I have to think about like, will those two things, sorry, how hard will it be to bring those two things together, right? Like, how hard will it be to make those two things work? So that's what I'm trying to think about. Like, I didn't even make it to the constraints part of this because that was like the second aspect of this question is what are the constraints for what I'm optimizing for? I only made it to the fact that I was like, oh, I want to optimize for, things like time with family, and I want to optimize for things like pouring into the development of the boys and those kind of things, like targeted things. And then I realized that like, but I default to all these other, things that I've done for the last 30 something years. And then, or 20 something years, I guess it depends on how you treat your teenage years, but like 20 something years. And I've gone, well, hold on, that conflicts completely with wanting to develop the boys and pour into the boys and family and stuff like that. So really not sure what to do with that as we end this follow-up segment.
Existential follow up. That's the
Yes,
best kind.
it is. It is existential. So if there is I mean, I rated the book a 3 out of 5 last time. So if there was a good thing that came out of that, this is a very good thing to come out of that. Because if I can resolve this, I think that'll help out, a lot. But I don't know how to resolve it right now. How about
All
you?
right. So I had two action items here. One was to whiteboard more, and as you mentioned, not a whole lot of time between this recording and the last one because I'm about to leave on a trip with my 16-year-old. I did get a whiteboard session in, but I specifically said multiples per week, and there was not multiples nor a week. So I guess it's yellow.
Yeah.
The other one, updating my favorite problems. This I did do. Most of the problems that were on that note I kept, but I added two new ones. One, as we talked about in the pro show, I have an assistant now. So one of the questions that I have added is, what can I delegate to my assistant?
That's a good one.
Yeah, and there's lots of stuff. The other one is, what can I build, or what can I like vibe code? I'm still kind of clumsy around the wording of that, but basically, what can I build? Because I've been going nuts building all these different tools and we talked about this a little bit in the pro show too. But one of the things that's making working with the VA so successful this time around is that I can basically build whatever tool that we might need.
Mm-hmm.
So I am in Claude Code almost every day at this point, making stuff,
Yep.
and that's really cool. I built the Amplify page in Claude, using Claude Design and Claude Code.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cohort that is actually live by the time this goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a couple other sales pages with Claude, and it's helping me do a lot of things that just weren't options before. You know, where it's like, I want to change this page, but I don't have a couple grand to give a designer to change it. You know, can I bring it in, revamp it in code so it knows where everything is, and then tweak some things? You know, stuff like that is very empowering. So I'm constantly looking for what I can throw at code or design and see what it can do. Some examples on that Amplify page were like, I created this creativity flywheel animation that was in Claude Design. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start with that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
I
I
know.
just gave it to Claude and like, hey, can you do this? And here's the final version. What do you think? I'm like, oh, actually, that's pretty good. I'd change this one specific thing, you know, but yeah. So if you're a builder, it's a pretty cool, pretty exciting time. And I want to constantly be asking myself, basically, like, what else can I build?
Yeah, good. And you're doing a fun job. It's like, it's fun to see, and you're doing a good job on all the build stuff you're building too. So it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, ready to talk about a book?
Yeah, let's talk about money.
All right. So as Cory just alluded to, the book today is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. This is the one that kind of made Morgan Housel famous, or made him appear on my radar. And there's some pretty famous people who have written the blurbs for this one, including James Clear from Atomic Habits, stuff like that. I think this was like a series of blog posts. I had not come across Morgan Housel's work prior to reading books that he had written. I think the one that I read first was Same as Ever. Psychology of Money was the one that kind of put him on the map, like I said. So this one always felt like we should definitely go back and read this one at some point. But I'm curious, Cory, had you come across Morgan Housel prior to reading this book?
So I actually had heard of The Psychology of Money before Same as Ever. And I had never read it, but like, I had no idea who Morgan Housel was. I was interested to see on the front cover of the book that over 10 million copies have been sold. So that's not too shabby. I mean, if you're going to write a book and you're going to sell 10 million copies, that's pretty great, in terms of, just reach, in terms of getting out to people. So I'm not sure how that happened, whether he had like a huge following or whether it just caught on and kind of went like wildfire. But it was published, if I'm looking at this correctly, it's published in 2020. So right around COVID times, which makes sense because he talks about some things right around in the COVID era. So the short answer for your question is no, I had not heard of him, but I had heard of this book before.
Okay. Yeah, I think this book, if you have one foot in the productivity space, you've heard about this book or seen it pop up. But The Psychology of Money maybe is not a super sexy title.
It's not.
So I remember hearing about it, hearing it was good, seeing, it sold a gazillion copies, and was like, I should probably read that at some point. I don't want to read it now.
Yep.
Actually have 2 copies of this book, as I mentioned, because it keeps showing up on my radar. So I bought one from Amazon, and then I was at Half Price Books and saw it there. I'd forgotten that I had already bought it, so ended up buying it again. And I think it's not. I'll say this at the beginning. It's a much more entertaining read than a book on money might appear when you just look at the cover, especially because it's got like dollar bills that are folded sort of like as the creases in the brain. Psychology seems like a kind of dry subject. Maybe money sounds like a really dry subject. The psychology of money is like the worst of both worlds, perhaps. But I think it's interesting because the whole premise of this book is, it's right there in the title, The Psychology of Money. How we spend our money is not necessarily logical or rational.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other things that go into it. So, yeah, it's broken into all these different chapters, which I think appeared originally as blog posts. I don't know that for sure, but that's definitely the way that it reads. Is like there's a whole bunch of blog posts here. They're all kind of linked together in this book. There are no sections. It's just one idea to the next idea to the next idea with a linking sentence kind of at the end of every single chapter.
Yep.
And I think we just got to crank through them. 20 different chapters here. Some of them maybe we talk about a little bit more than others. Some we just fly through, but that's the format of the book. First impressions as you crack this one open?
I agree with you in terms of the idea of psychology and money and going, well, what's this going to be like? What I'll say is like, there weren't any bells and whistles in this. Like he wasn't trying to be super inventive or creative or make up stories or do it as a parable or anything like that. But he gives really good examples and it's very clear. Like this is what I'm going to talk about. And then I'm going to talk about it for, a couple pages. I mean, I don't remember any of the chapters being that long. So like they were all fairly concise chapters. There's 20 of them. Overall, the book's a really quick read, hitting a couple chapters a day. And then if you want to read it like really quickly, I mean, you can easily read, 7 to 10 chapters a day and have this done in a day or two. So overall, I think it was I didn't know what to expect, and it didn't surprise me. It didn't shock me.
Okay. All right. So let's get into this chapter by chapter. We'll start here with the introduction, which is the greatest show on earth. And the big idea here is that handling money is a soft skill. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that, by the way?
I agree completely. Like, I think,
okay.
I mean, I think, and I live in a world of spreadsheets, right? Like, so I live in a world that says, okay, well, if we can spreadsheet that, we should spreadsheet that, right? Like that just makes total sense. But there are certain areas of life where you can know, like the right answer. You could spreadsheet this and let the data tell you what the data is going to tell you. And you're just not going to listen to it. And you're going to say like, yeah, I know the data tells me to do that. And I just don't really care, right? So I think one of the first things is to say psychology, think about it in terms of the way we think about and the way we behave related to something. Like that's the layman's, definition of the way we think about it and the way we behave according to money. And I completely think it's a soft skill. I think if it wasn't a soft skill, then the markets would be completely predictable and the economy would be completely predictable and everybody would actually be, very, very wealthy. And he separates wealthy and rich later, but they would be very, very wealthy and it'd be fine. But it's not. And we don't. And none of that's true. So yes, soft skill for sure.
Yeah. And just for context, I guess, with the term soft skill, this is typically things like, I don't know, empathy or communication skills. Maybe that's a little bit easier to measure than some of the traditional soft skills. And my background with soft skills, working with the family business, I mean, my dad created assessments and skill building systems for social emotional learning. So these were the soft skills that they were trying to teach in schools, but also there's an emphasis in the schools on like the GPA and the hard skills. You got to be ready for life after high school. And it was very easy to sweep the soft skills under the rug. Those aren't really that necessary. The place that they were really necessary was the market that we were specifically addressing, and that is the special education market. I think they are, though, skills that everybody needs. And I think the world would be a better place if there was a bigger emphasis on teaching and developing soft skills.
The problem is they're hard, right? Because people are fickle. People are fickle and unpredictable beasts. So therefore, it's really, really difficult for us to, I mean, we can teach it, and there's a difference between though information and knowledge, as we know. So, yeah, it makes it tough. It makes it really tough.
Interesting though, because the research behind it shows that these are the skills that account for the majority of your personal and professional success. So if you want to be successful, you got to focus on the soft skills. The hard part is, am I winning? Am I losing? I have no idea because they're really hard to measure most of the time.
And this, he would say the same thing about money, right? Like that's why it's a soft
Yes,
skill, is
exactly.
because they're the really hard thing to go, am I doing right? Am I winning? Am I losing? I don't know. Like what should I do? I should just wait. I should just keep doing it and wait.
Yeah, and it's not that simple as like, am I winning? Am I losing? One of the things that he mentions in the introduction here is that there are a few topics are more powerful magnifying glass that explains why people act the way they do than money. So like money kind of shows your core motivations and what you're optimizing for. But there's two topics that impact people, whether they're interested in them or not. One of them is money, the other one is health. So it is definitely worth paying attention to. And I feel like the introduction does a pretty good job of making the case that, hey, you should look at this. It's
Yep.
important.
Yeah, he had me. I was like, okay, I know what we're talking about here, and he was very clear about it. Like I like it when the author is very clear, but he has a couple statements in here that said that's what like we're trying to do in this book. Like this is what I'm trying to express to you in this book, which I liked a lot.
Yep, totally. Okay, so the next chapter, chapter 1, is No One's Crazy. And if I were to summarize this one, it's basically that everyone has a reason for the way that they do things with money. So, yeah, money can give you a glimpse of why people act the way that they do. But sometimes if you just look at the way that people spend their money, you're like, they're nuts.
Yep.
Well, if you understand their belief system,
Yep.
then it usually makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me from this is the fact that your personal experiences with money make up 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world. I think that's the right number of zeros. But it also accounts for about 80% of how you think the world works. So all of your mental models get built off of your experiences. And those experiences show up in the way that you manage your money. So this is kind of interesting. How you were brought up, the things that you were taught or weren't taught, those are real important, and they create the structure for how you're going to manage the most important resource you have in your life for the rest of your life. It's kind of crazy.
Okay, so I have a question for you. What is
Okay.
the financial event that is most relevant in your head? Now, I'm not saying it's impacted you the most. I'm not saying you've made decisions based on it or anything like that. I'm just saying the one that if I say like a financial event that's happened in your life, what's the one that like very quickly pops into your head?
The financial event that influenced my life.
Or just that it pops into your head first? Like which one do you think of when you go, "Oh, financial event. Oh, it was this."
Gosh, I don't even know. So there are some, like he talks about the mortgage crisis,
Mhm.
2007, 2009. Like I went through that, but I don't feel like it had the impact on me that the ones I didn't go through did, like the Great Depression. That's
Mhm.
the one that comes to mind immediately, but I have no experience with that.
Yeah, see, mine is 100% the one you brought up. I remember in 2008, I was sitting in AT&T's cafeteria in Dallas, Texas, and we're eating lunch. We're designing an audio video system, and we're eating lunch, and everybody's freaking out. Like, I mean, everybody like at AT&T, like all the employees of AT&T are freaking out. And we're a subcontractor, so we're just sitting in there eating lunch. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why is like there was this like hum in the room and everybody's kind of like running around like frantic. And I looked up at the TV in the cafeteria, and they had one of the financial channels on. I don't remember what it was. And I mean, you just saw this like line like down red. And I was like, oh, oh, like all of these people, because I mean, I'm brand new. I'm just out of college. I don't have any money to begin with, so it doesn't really matter. It's not like I didn't have a house, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have any of this stuff. I was like, oh, all these people just lost like a boatload of money, and they're like upside down on their mortgage, and they have like no idea what's going to happen to them. And like I was like, oh, this is like a big deal. This is like a really really big deal. And where it like impacted me was understanding that for no fault of my own, the market can just do stuff. And I need to
Yeah.
think about that. And I need to like account for that in my head that said it kind of is gambling, even though it's like a different form of gambling. And it's, I mean, it's impacted like the whole way I think about money moving on to there. So that's what I think about when I think about No One's Crazy. Like you talked about, everybody's got a reason for what they do. And I would even say an understandable, possibly legitimate reason. It could be wrong. I'm not going to tell you that it's like a right, you know, reasoning for what they do, but it's at least understandable and legitimate if you ask them about their backstory. So I think he hits a really, really good point here about like, hey, don't judge people. That's the way I took this. My
Yeah.
summary for this chapter is don't judge people until you've walked in their shoes because you don't know what they've been through. I mean, my grandma used to make this dessert, and I was like, why does my grandma always make this dessert? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it has like two ingredients in it. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. It tastes good, but it has like two ingredients. And my mom would be like, yeah, because during the Depression, like they didn't have anything. She's like, they had these two ingredients, and that was the only dessert they could make. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that makes complete sense of why that's the one my grandma defaults to.
Yeah, that's actually a great jumping off point for the next chapter if you're ready to go there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the next chapter, chapter 2, is luck and risk. And this is really about these two things that have more to do with the outcome that you see than most of us are probably comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
The stories that they told in this particular, or that he told in this particular chapter, were pretty incredible. So it starts off talking about Bill Gates and how it was 1 in a million that he went to this high school that actually had a personal computer at the time that he went to high school. So 1 in a million chance that he gets connected with Paul Allen and then a third friend, Kent Evans, and they end up starting Microsoft. Now, the reason you never heard of Kent Evans is that in high school he died climbing a mountain or something.
That's
and again, a 1 in a million
Yep.
Odds that you would die in this type of activity. So you can tell like Bill Gates is getting emotional talking about him. He's like, yeah, he would have been a partner if he had made it. And it was kind of crazy, like the poetic envelope of those two 1 in a million chances from the like different, both a positive and a negative application in the same scenario.
Yeah.
Right, is kind of crazy. And then talking about how both luck and risk are based on factors that are outside of your control. So for people like me who want to control everything, that's uncomfortable. What you going to do with that?
Yep. Yeah, I have an interesting story here. A family friend had the opportunity to invest $10,000 in an athletic apparel company, right? And he gets presented with this, and it was starting out of a university, and he said, "No, I can't do it. I can't afford $10,000 right now. That's just too big of a risk. I just can't do it." Do you want to know what the athletic apparel company was, Mike?
What was it?
Under Armour. Like he knew the guys who started Under Armour, and they were like, "Hey, get on the ground floor. We need 10 grand. You can be partial. Blah 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 blah. Like here's your percentage." And he didn't do it. And can you think about the amount of money he would have now if
Man.
he would have gotten in on the ground
Yeah.
floor? And so it's like that's a luck risk thing, right? Like you're lucky
Mhm.
enough to be in the room with those people and be friends with those people, and then what's your risk tolerance for that $10,000? Like if you lose it, okay, that stinks. If it turns into something crazy, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, the one I like, or one of the things I like about this chapter, and he rounds out the chapter this way, is he talks about actionable takeaways and about how you look for broad patterns of success or failure. So, like, be careful looking at the individual data points. And this is something we talk about a lot in my world where, we'll do kind of like line charts where we'll look for anomalies within the data, and we will never act on a single anomaly unless it's like crazy out there, right? Like unless it's completely out of the control chart. But even then, we tend to not act on that. We wait for a pattern of, okay, this is outside of the control lines and it's increasing. Okay, we gotta start thinking about that. Or, this is too volatile and it's been volatile for too many periods. Like what we got to think about why there's volatility in that data. And I like that he brings that back, is let's look at the big broad patterns and try to make decisions based on those, not the individual data points, because they're just too lucky and risky to look at.
Yep. Definitely. Anything else
No,
before we
let's
go to
go.
the next chapter?
Nope. There's never enough. Let's go to that one.
All right. Yep. That's the next chapter.
Yep.
Chapter 3 is Never Enough. And this is really about envy, I guess. He mentions
Yes.
that modern capitalism is a pro at two things: generating wealth and generating envy. And the equation that he has here for happiness, I think, is pretty brilliant. Happiness equals your results minus your
Yep.
expectations.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So again, this is like very simple and nothing like completely new and original in the framing of this, but the way that he describes it is very motivating. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I
Mm-hmm.
should totally just be satisfied. He mentions, and I thought this was great. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving, because
Yep.
you've heard that saying, like once you get to the goalpost, they move, and you got to have more, right? So I don't know. I feel like this at this point in the book, it's starting to sink in. You know, he
Yeah.
mentions that there's many things never worth risking, no matter what the potential gain is, and I feel like um, I don't have like an action item associated with this yet. I guess we'll talk about that at some point, but this is really hard to have a specific action item from this
Mm-hmm.
book that is related to the core message of the book, because the core message is basically think smarter about how you
Yep.
you manage your money.
Yep.
But he's not going to give you any specific formula for how to do that.
I kind of love that he doesn't. We're going to talk about this in style and rating. I
Yep.
love that he doesn't say like this is the approach you should follow. He's more like these are the things you should think about. And I'm not going to tell you what to think, but these are the things you should think about. And in this chapter, I think, I mean, he is absolutely spot on, right? Like social comparison is an issue. Get the goalpost to stop moving. I tell my students this all the time. I'll ask them when they graduate. I'm like, "Hey, do you plan on going to grad school?" And they're like, "Well, I think I want to one day." And I go, "Okay, so one of the things you got to worry about is you go out and you start making a bunch of money, and then you decide you're going to go back to grad school full time, and you just stop making money." I was like, "Or you make significantly less money." I was like, "Can you do that?" Because not everybody can. And then you look at the numbers and you realize, like, oh shoot, I'm only going to make that much, and I was making whatever it was before. I'm like, this is a big deal. Like, you need to actually pay attention to that. So, like, I think all of the core ideas in this chapter, I mean, if you don't make it past chapter 3, just reading the core ideas in this chapter and then taking those to heart, like, that's a win. Like, you've won, and it was worth the money, whatever he charges for the book, the version of the book that you buy. It was worth the money. Like, I really do. I think chapter 3 is awesome.
I think I agree. Um, yeah, anything else from chapter 3?
Nope.
Okay. So chapter 4 is confounding compounding, and this is really about the magic of compound interest, which if you have read any other business or finance type book before, you've heard this message before, but maybe you haven't heard it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a statistic in here which kind of blew my mind. 84.2 billion of Warren Buffett's 84.5 billion net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
it's almost not real. Like I wanted to look at it and be like, listen, is this real? Did he just make this
Yep.
up?
And that's the beauty of this style, I feel like, is there's nothing in here that you maybe haven't heard before, but you haven't heard it this way. And that specific statistic sticks with you in a
Mm-hmm.
way that, hey, if you just invest $100 a month starting when you're 18, you'll have this much by the time you retire, does not.
Yes. Which I can tell you personally, it didn't. I heard that when I was young. I heard it when I was in college. I heard it all the
Mm-hmm.
time, but it just never, like, there's the difference between what works on a spreadsheet and what you actually do. And it's like so frustrating to be in my 40s and look back and go, why didn't I listen to the smart people that were telling me this? Like,
Yep.
like, I mean, it's just wild the difference between what we know to be true and our behavior as it comes on that. So I mean, just to round out what Mike's saying, the whole chapter is just about the power of time, the power of compounding, and the power of essentially being stable and committing to it. He talks about the fact that everybody claims Buffett's this like amazing investor, and it's like, or he just invested for 75 years and like he was
Yeah.
consistent and invested for 75 years. And I think both of those are true. Like I think he was very smart in what he invested in, but I also think the time factor is huge in that. and it's just, I mean, it's just really simple, profound advice, and I think it's just really cool.
I agree. Chapter 5 is sort of a continuation of this. So this is getting wealthy versus staying wealthy.
Mike,
And
did I ever tell you? I'm going to interrupt you for a second over. Did I ever tell you about my job that I thought about doing? And if anybody's listening out here that has extreme wealth and wants me to do this, I will entertain you. So this is partially a pitch and partially just a funny story. I just want to be the person that celebrities call and they say, "Hey, should I spend the money on this?" And I just go, "No." I just don't, right? Like, or like I'm the like two-factor code where like when they want to spend over $10,000 on something, like I just hit the no button, like the nope, you're not allowed to do that. And they pay me a small retainer and everything's fine. Like that's what I read. That's what I thought about when I read the Get Wealthy versus Stay Wealthy chapter. Sorry, thanks for letting me
nice.
interrupt
I
you.
feel like you could definitely vibe code something for that.
Yes, you could. You definitely could. Sorry, I interrupted you though. Thanks for letting me do that.
No, that's cool. So this is basically that it talks about how getting wealthy takes one set of skills, staying wealthy requires another set of skills. There are lots of ways to get wealthy, but only one to stay wealthy, some combination of frugality and paranoia.
Yep.
Compounding only works if you give an asset years and years to grow. And this, I think, kind of hints at one of the things you were talking about with Warren Buffett and how he just continued to invest even when things look bad. That's another like big theme I got from this book is that all of the markets are going down, it's time to jump ship. Basically, everybody who tries to do that is guaranteed to lose. Even if you time it perfectly, feel like
Mhm.
you still net lose if you're trying to do that all the time. Plus, also, it sounds like a huge emotional
Oh yeah.
burden to constantly be looking and trying to read those tea leaves and figure out when do I need to, strike while the iron is hot and all that kind of stuff. This isn't exactly what he was talking about here, but it sort of reminds me of my mom got into day trading. I remember when I was in high school because my uncle was into it. We went to visit him and he was a dentist, but we're out in California and he's showing us his office. He's got like the 4 monitors set up. Not a nerd at all, but he's got this whole big stock setup, right? And he's convinced my mom that if that she can be a day trader. So she comes back and she's trying to do this stuff. And I like go in the basement, see her down there, and she's so stressed out
Yep.
trying to figure everything out. I'm just like, is this really worth it?
Yep. Mike, this is why, like, I mean, this is one of the reasons why, but like gambling never interested me. It still doesn't interest me. And it's because I can't handle the emotional stress of, like seeing all of that stuff play and then like averaging it out and saying, like, okay, what's my net? Like, because I know I'm going to win, I know I'm going to lose and all that stuff. The losses hurt too bad. They're too big of a gut punch. I can't do it. And I learned that at like a community fair when I was like 12 years old. And I was like, nope, this is not for me. I need to just stay out of this game. I just need to completely stay out of this game. It hurts too much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, related to that is chapter 6. So
Yep.
chapter 6 is Tails You Win. And this is talking about the title comes from the idea of the tail end of the curves
Hmm.
where all of the results come from. But in between, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
mentions that we underestimate how normal it is for a lot of things to fail. 4 out of 10 public companies fail, and there's only a couple things that account for most of the results. So an investing genius is someone who can do the average thing when all those around them are going crazy. They can stick it out when everybody's jumping ship. But the thing that jumped out to me from this section was if you are good at business, half of your products will work.
Hmm.
And immediately got me thinking about my creator business and the different courses and things that I've tried. And I can tell you that every single time I launch something, there is an unstated pressure because it's like if I'm building this thing, it's based off of something that I'm really excited or passionate
Yep.
about, and I've figured it out and it's going to be helpful for somebody else. And that is true. But like assuming all that is true, feels like there's this implicit expectation that this thing should go gangbusters every single time. And basically when I read this chapter, I was like, oh, I could have all those dots, all those boxes checked, all those dots connected. And still, when I launch things, half of them are going to fail. Well, I guess I should just try a bunch of stuff then. There's another book that I came across. I ordered it and it came already. I might do it as a gap book. We'll see. But it's basically something like you can just do things. I'll grab the link and I'll put it in the show notes if people are interested in it. But it's really like giving you permission to just try things and not put all of your validation into whether this thing actually works or not. I recognize based on some of the coaching that I've done recently that whenever I launch something or release something out into the world, I feel like that is now a permanent part of my identity. And I want to get good at the skill of just trying it. And then if it doesn't work, being like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Sorry, everybody who bought it. I'll make it right. But just because I had a few people buy it doesn't mean that I have to continue to service this thing for the rest of time. I can continue to run experiments until I find the thing that really, really clicks. And I feel like I've had some moderate successes, but I really haven't found the thing that really just is the tail end of that curve for me yet. But I am excited to do it.
Well, and if you think about the examples from other companies, that some of them he talks about, some of them he doesn't. I'm almost positive he talks about venture capital here, and the fact that venture capital will invest significant amounts of money in a lot of different things, but they're not going to hit on, like, they're going to hit on barely any of them, right? Like, so, 1 out of 10 or whatever is going to hit. But what they want is they want that one that hits to hit big. And it wipes out all those other losses, all those other things that just kind of fizzled out and didn't plan. And we, read about these on the internet, and they're called unicorns, right? Like, so what the VC firms are trying to find is they're trying to find the unicorns because they know the unicorns will make up for all their other losses, and then they'll still look good. Well, pharmacies are the same way. Pharmaceutical drug companies, not pharmacies, pharmaceutical drug companies are the same way. They're really trying to find the one drug that'll hit, knowing that they're going to spend billions and billions and billions in the development of a bunch of stuff that's never going to hit, or it's never going to get approved by the FDA or whatever it is. So it's like this idea is throughout all different kinds of things, right? I mean, it's a really pervasive idea in our world. You don't think about it like that, but it's a really pervasive idea in our world. The thing that got me about this chapter was I actually thought this chapter was slightly confusing, and it's because of like the tails language. Like, I knew what he meant, but I just didn't think it read as clearly. Overall, the idea made sense, but it's like I didn't think this one read as clearly. So, I mean, I didn't have many of those in this book, but this was one of those chapters. Chapter 6 was one of those where I was kind of like, I don't really like the tails language.
Yeah, I can understand that. It didn't bother me, but I was an economics minor. So.
Okay. Yeah. See, and I'm not as familiar with it, so that it was kind of new to me.
Yeah, but I will say that for the most part, you don't have to have a business or economics degree in order for this book to make sense, which is one of the things that I like about it. It is very approachable.
I would agree completely with you on that.
All right.
Can I start 7?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so chapter 7 is freedom. I actually think if you're looking for Morgan Housel's core psychological bent when it comes to the way he manages money, this is where you're going to get it. It's the idea of freedom. It's not a strategy. It's not a individual like implementation of anything like that. It's the idea that he wants to at all times be financially free. Now, Mike, you might think I'm going too far. If you do, correct me with your error. But like, this is in my mind the underlying thread of Morgan Housel's psychology of money. Is like he wants the freedom to do whatever he wants to do with his money, or whatever he wants to do with his time, or whatever he wants to do with, and therefore he's going to make money decisions, investment decisions, all of those decisions based on this idea of freedom. I think it's kind of like the crux of the book to me. Like it's the key component of his perspective in the book for me.
I completely agree. I think this is the big takeaway from the book so far. is that you want to have freedom over how you spend your time. He mentions here, we're richer than ever, but compared to generations prior, control over our time has diminished.
Mm-hmm.
There's a term called reactance, which is doing something that you love on a schedule you can't control. I feel like I've been there.
Yep. Yep.
And I don't like it.
Yep.
But the common denominator for happiness is control of our lives. The highest form of wealth, he says, is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. He also mentions another book in this chapter, which I have read. Have you ever heard of 30 Lessons for Living?
Okay, I'm actually searching the Bookworm website right now to see if we've covered it because this book sounds super, super interesting to me. But tell me about it because I've not read it.
I don't think we have read it, but I read it as a gap book. It's by Dr. Carl Pillemer, and he was basically trying to study what makes a good life.
Okay.
And so he went and he interviewed something like 10,000 people in nursing homes, but not just people in nursing homes. He would go into a nursing home and he would find the one or two rock stars there that are just living their best life
Yep. Yep.
and interviewed them. And he took all of the responses that he got and he condensed them down into basically these 30 different lessons. So everything that he got basically was condensed down into 30 different responses that people gave over and over and over again. He put that into a book, shared a bunch of anecdotes from specific people on like the stories that they told and things like that. And it's a really, really good book. I would definitely recommend that. It might be a cool bookworm book if you wanted to cover it at some point. I don't know. Get it and take a look at it. Let me know if you like it, because it's
Okay.
basically just people at the end of their life and they're like, yeah, if I was younger, this is what I would want to know. This is the lessons basically what do you wish you would have known earlier in life for someone who really wants the wisdom that you've accumulated over the years.
Yeah.
Right. So it's stuff like, don't go to bed angry or always say you're sorry, things that you've heard before, but I don't know, the way that they're packaged is really kind of cool.
Yeah. Cool. From that, like I was going to talk about what he pulls from that book is he wrote, not a single person out of thousands said to be happy. You should try to work as hard as you can to make money to buy things you want. Not a single person said it's important to be at least as wealthy as the people around you. Like I think the things he's pulling out of here are the things that like made me go, well, have I thought that in the past? Do I currently think that? And I was like, oh, and it's a really good book for kind of analyzing yourself as you go through. Like, how do I think about money? How do I
Yep.
think about freedom? And I liked that a lot. Like, I like being challenged as I read a book and kind of having to go like introspective on it. And he does a good job. Morgan Housel does a good job as he's writing this book.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties into the next chapter. So let's go there. Chapter 8 is the man in the car paradox. And this makes no sense if you don't understand the story that Morgan Housel tells
And
here, which is that
I took no notes on this chapter. I have no idea what this chapter is about. So Mike,
okay.
you gotta own this one for me, bud.
Okay, so he was a valet driver and he would see people pull up in these fancy supercars and he would look at the people driving them and he'd be like, "Man, that guy is really cool." And then he would go park the car and then he had the realization one day that he couldn't remember anything about the people who drove the cars. He just remembered the cars.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story you tell yourself is, I need that status symbol, that car, what it represents, right? So people know that I am successful. But if you are the man in the car, no one is looking at you. Everyone is looking at the car.
The car. Yep.
So it sort of doesn't work.
Yep.
Even if that was the whole goal, which I mean, that in and of itself is kind of like, why? But his point is that no one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. People buy fancy cars because they think people will admire them, but the people end up admiring the car, not the person driving it.
Yep. Yep. So I remember it now, but I didn't remember any of that, and it's a really good principle. Because did you ever valet before?
I did not know.
Yeah, I valeted a country club, and like I can totally see where he's coming from on this one. It's like I don't remember any of the people. I remember the cars though. I got to drive some interesting cars.
I'm pretty sure that's where he was a valet too, but I don't remember the specifics of that. I just remember that he was a valet, and that's kind of what anchored that whole thing for me.
Yeah, was this the one where the story about the guy who would throw around like dumb amounts of money and throw the coin,
Mm,
or was that later?
maybe,
Yeah,
but I don't I thought that was earlier.
it might
I
have been.
don't recall specifically, but yeah, that was basically like some guy was throwing around money, and then he's like, you wouldn't be surprised to find out later that he was
He
broke,
went bankrupt. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. He probably weaves that in throughout a bunch of these chapters, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even the next one, which is chapter 9, Wealth is What You Don't See. So he says right at the beginning here, we see the car, but we don't see the bank account. And he makes a very important point here that when most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they mean is they want to spend $1,000,000.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So the way to be rich is to spend money you have and don't spend money you don't have. Feels very simple, right? But rich equals your current income. Wealth is income that's not spent.
Yeah.
And
I think this is an area where he could expand on this book or the idea, but I think he had too much to cover because he talks about wealth being hidden and like rich is what you show people, but wealth is hidden. And I just think he could have unpacked rich and wealthy in much more. It wasn't the point of the book. Like he wanted to cover more than that, but I really think he could have expanded that out more as you go there. Because I've heard of this distinction before in other places, and it's kind of like just to summarize it again, like rich is what you show people. Like you know if a person's rich, like you can tell by the house they live in, the car they drive, the way they throw around money at dinner or whatever it might be. But like wealthy, I mean, there's sneaky wealthy people, right? Like people who are like crazy wealthy and you'd never know because they eat their McDonald's and drink their Coke, you know, like Warren Buffett.
I think probably most millionaires don't eat McDonald's if I had to guess.
Yeah, I would say that's probably
Not
pretty true.
because it's expensive, but like he talked about health and wealth are related.
Uh,
So maybe if you have that revelation about the about the wealth is probably a correlation to some of the health stuff too.
yeah.
Be my totally shot in the dark guess there, but I
Mm-hmm.
get your point. I do think that, and I agree with you. He could go further into that distinction, but what this chapter really does for me is it sets the stage for the next one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You ready to go there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the next chapter is chapter 10, and this is save money. So with the context of if you want to be wealthy, you have to not spend the money.
Yep.
Like if you don't have that leading up to chapter 10, I feel like chapter 10 maybe doesn't hit the same way.
Yep. Yep. I
And that's
agree.
part of the brilliance of this book is that these essays are great and they probably can stand on their own, but the way that he orders them and the way that they tie together sometimes is a little bit magical, and it makes them better when they're packaged together. And this is one of those, I think. So chapter 10 is very simple. Just save money, right?
Yep.
You can build wealth without a high income. You can't without a high savings rate. And so savings is the gap between your ego and your income.
I love
One of
that.
the things he says here. Yeah, that was Rachel and I were talking about this on the way back from Door County the other day, and I'm like, that line alone probably makes the book worth reading.
Yep.
And I do have an action item from this particular chapter, which really doesn't have anything to do with saving money, but he talks a little bit in here about like competitive advantage. In fact, he brings up soft skills again. Soft skills are a great source of competitive advantage. And one of the things that he's talking about from a business perspective is like standing out when you are compared to your competitors. And that was one of the questions that I jotted down that I want to consider is how can I stand out? Maybe that's something I should add to the favorite problems sheet that I mentioned in the follow-up. I don't know that I'll have a specific answer with this, but I feel like it's very easy to fall into that commoditized mindset for me with the stuff that I make online. Again, it has nothing to do with the main idea here, which is saving money and spending less. But
yeah. And I think this ties really nicely into something from earlier chapters about that goalpost moving, right? Like what's one of the easiest ways to save money is to not let the goalpost move, right? Like you don't need to flip and buy the bigger house. You don't need to flip and buy the nicer car. You don't have to do any of that. Like you can stay where you're at and continue to, work the job that you're working or get increase in promotions and things like that. Like I just, I like the way he takes a simple concept, save money, and he approaches it in a couple different ways that say, hold on, here's the crux of saving money. Don't let your needs outweigh your earnings. Don't let your ego get in the way. Like I like that he adds like that nuanced detail underneath, and I think he does a really good job, and he presents it in a way that can hit most people and kind of give them a different perspective on thinking about this. So I like the chapter 10 a lot.
100% agree. And I have to share this paragraph from this chapter because this is kind of the whole book in a nutshell. Savings can be created by spending less.
Yep.
You can spend less if you desire less, and you will desire less if you care less about what others think. That's it in a nutshell.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. Hard.
All right, ready to go?
Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Simple, not easy, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, ready to go to the next one?
Yep.
All right, so the next chapter, chapter 11, is reasonable greater than rational, well, greater than character.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the gist of this chapter is that people will make decisions when they, even if they're not mathematically optimal, when they can connect the dots in their head, basically. And he uses a pretty crazy story from medicine here about fever being almost universally considered to be a bad thing, but it's actually good for the body when fighting diseases. And so shared some stories of people who were like trying to battle some, and I should have written down the diseases they were fighting, but there was some disease that people were dying from at a crazy rate. And so he tried to cure them by giving them a mild form of malaria or something like that, because it would cause their body to go into a crazy fever for a short period of time. And then that actually is the thing that helped fight off the more threatening disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just used as the example of the crazy thinking when it comes to this stuff. But rational thinking, he mentions, becomes a liability if it means you're more likely to walk away when things don't go well. So investing is, he also says, investing is giving money to strangers. So I think it's important to recognize that. And then I don't know, like I don't have a whole lot from this chapter where it's like, yeah, this is what I want to do with this. This is the one that felt, out of all the chapters so far, like I had a harder time grasping the true thread throughout the rest of the book. But I think the big idea here is that if people think that there's a reasonable explanation for something, they will take that over the rational, logical decision most of the time.
Yeah, there was a paragraph towards the end of this chapter that brings this chapter home for me. It's basically the fact that commitment to a strategy and keeping steady with it. So in my mind, he would call that the reasonable. It's not the rational. The rational would say, like, when the numbers start to go down, you sell, or when the numbers start to go up, you buy. He said the reasonable strategy is you've committed to a strategy and you're going to stick with that strategy through thick or thin. And this is the part that I think is really interesting. The historical odds of making money in the U.S. market, in U.S. markets, are 50-50 over 1 day, 68% in 1 year, 88% in 10 years, 100% in 20 years. And it's like, so he's saying, if you're just reasonable about your strategy, it doesn't have to be a perfect strategy. Like you can screw up in the strategy that you chose. Just don't be volatile, right? Like don't be, and he calls it rational in terms of like, you're just overly black and white. That's the way I would describe that, is overly black and white in it. And he's like, well, hold on. That's actually not what history shows. History shows pick a strategy, even if it's a little bit imperfect, and just stick with it for time. Stick with it for time. So it ties back to that compounding. It ties back to some other things that he's talked about in the book. So that's kind of what I took away from chapter 11.
I like that. And then stick with it. That leads into the next chapter, which is chapter 12, surprise. And the big idea here is that the majority of what's happening at any given moment in the global economy can be tied back to a handful of past events that were nearly impossible to predict.
Yep, exactly.
So things that have never happened before happen all the time. And if you try to look at history and use what has happened previously as a predictor, there's a name for that. That's a historians as prophets fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you place an over reliance on past data and it's used as a signal of future conditions. So there's all sorts of stuff where people are looking at, we're going into this recession, but it's probably going to be in this range. And they're basing that off of things that they've seen before. But there's a pretty good chance that there will be things that we haven't seen before.
Yep.
And the big lesson to learn from the surprises, he says in this chapter, is that the world is surprising. I don't really know what else you do with this other than like maybe don't believe the predictions. I don't know.
That was my key quote to the whole thing. It was like the correct lesson to learn is surprises, or from surprises is the world is surprising. I was like, wow, so profound, Morgan.
Yep.
Like that's unbelievable. Mine is, it goes back to that principle that you talked about before, where you're trying to look at those big patterns. Like you're not worried about those individual things that you can't predict, that there's no way to predict those things. You're trying to look for those like gigantic patterns in different things. But even then, just be okay with the fact that something surprising is going to happen. I'm going to be sitting in the cafeteria at AT&T one day, and the financial world is going to melt around me. We're going to go through COVID, where we're going to have to like stockpile toilet paper and hand sanitizer. Like nobody was expecting that, like just be ready for that kind of stuff and stay the course. Like that's what I get out of this chapter is like stay the course.
Yeah, and the way to be ready for that kind of stuff, as you mentioned, is not to think about, oh, well, what if, this happens? It's really just have some savings. That
Save.
actually leads into the next chapter.
Yep.
So
Save. Yep. Yep.
yeah, the next chapter is chapter 13, Room for Error. Mentions at the very beginning of this, when you're making a bet, you have to give yourself room for error.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, basically you may end up in a real bad place. He says history is littered with good ideas that were taken too far and are now indistinguishable from bad ideas.
Yep.
We're really bad at predicting. He mentions that most people think if they see a home renovation project that somebody else is doing, that project will be between 25 to 50% over budget. But then when it comes to our own projects, we estimate that they're going to be completed on time and within budget.
Yep.
And it just, I've heard stuff like that before. I've not heard that specific statistic before, but I've definitely heard stories about, the Sydney Opera House or the Denver Airport, those projects that went way, 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 way over budget. And I've heard them historically as reasons for why the waterfall method of project planning is a disaster. But I think the larger lesson here is that we think that, oh yeah, it's a general rule, but I can beat it.
Yeah.
For some reason. And he's basically saying, no, you can't. Really powerful explanation here with the Russian roulette example, by the way. He says the odds are in your favor when you're playing Russian roulette, but the downside far outweighs the potential upside.
Yeah. I love that example, right? Because it's like, listen, if that goes wrong, it goes completely wrong. Like, so therefore you can't think of it like that. You can't think of it statistically. And this gets back to the rational and reasonable thing. That is rational. Oh, I've got X% of chance of success, but it's unreasonable because if it goes wrong, you're dead. Like there's no getting out of that. I took a project management class one time where the guy was basically, he had 20 something 30 years of experience, and he's like, okay, listen, if you're into a world where you have no background on the project that you're doing, he goes, your margin of error for your first round of your budget needs to be plus or minus 100% each way. And I was like, wow. I was like, but I was like, that actually kind of makes sense because everything you're doing is guessing. How much will that subcontractor charge me? I have no idea. How long will they take? No idea, because we don't have any data on this. We don't have any experience in the situation. So, like a lot of what he's saying in these chapters, I'm getting triangulation from other sources about like the truth of different things. I don't know, Mike, about you, but one of the things I am interested in, I like the idea of leverage. I mean, you're an economics minor, right? So you know of leverage, and you've like leverage scares the life out of me, right? Like I mean, I don't know why, but I am so maybe risk averse. The idea of like taking on debt to then invest that and like, leveraging myself to, yeah, I'm just like, nah, that's not good. I can't handle that emotionally.
I don't like it either, and I don't think Morgan Housel does either.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be honest, I was economics minor, but I don't think I've used my econ degree in quite a while. Not a whole lot of reason to draw supply demand curves as a independent creator,
Yep.
but
Yep.
yeah. The big takeaway though is that if there's one way to guard against the damage, it's avoiding a single point of failure. Maybe that's the big takeaway
Hmm.
from the whole idea of leverage. You don't need a particular reason to start saving. That's a theme that he says that over and over and over again. You don't have to have a goal like we want to do a renovation on the house or something like that. Just start saving and you'll use it for something that you hadn't predicted and you'll be glad that you have it.
He
So I think that's good advice.
he doesn't do this very often. I don't know if this is the first one or not. I didn't keep track of it, but he actually states in the end of this chapter, I save a lot. I have no
Yeah.
idea what I'll use the savings for. So like this is actually him telling you what he does, which he really reserves until chapter 20. Or is it chapter 20, I think? I think that's when he tells his strategies. But
Mm-hmm.
but he really reserves all that stuff. And he basically just says, "Hey, if you're planning for all these events, you're not planning for the surprise event. You're not planning for the event that you can't see and you don't have enough room for error." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's a pretty good strategy."
Agreed. All right. Chapter 14 is You'll Change. And I think it's right there in the title. You're not
Mhm.
going to be the same person that you were at the end of your life that you are at the beginning. And as a result of that, most people are very poor forecasters of their future selves.
Yep.
There's a statistic in here which it doesn't surprise me. I'm curious your reaction to this. You're shaking your
I
head.
know what you're going to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, only 27% of college graduates have a job related to their major. How does that make you feel?
Uh, I mean, I actually think it's one of the reasons why college is so important, and that's not me just trying to
Yeah.
justify my existence, is because I I think society has turned it into professional preparation, but I don't think it ever started out that way. Like I think it started out as forming you as a human and like forming your thought processes and forming your knowledge about the world and forming those things, and then apprenticeships. We've talked about Robert Greene. We read a Robert Greene book about mastery and apprenticeships and stuff, and I think apprenticeships were what actually formed you professionally. But I think we've kind of like smushed those two things together and we've said, well, university is where you go to be figure out or go to learn how to do the thing you're going to do. And I don't like that thought. Like I think university should be a way that you grow as an individual and as a human, and you learn a bunch of skills and you get a bunch of knowledge. But I don't. I think we focus too much on the professional development, and I think that stat plays it out. Like it shows that like people
Yeah.
just for one reason or another, you either didn't like it, like you thought you were going to like it, or you just couldn't find a job in that because the market was weird when you came out of school, so you took whatever job you could get. Like there's a bunch of different causes or reasons for it, and so I think it's a good point and sheds light on a bigger problem, if you will.
I agree. Um, I think the other things in this chapter kind of link to that. So on the one hand, 27% of college graduates have a job related to their major. So a lot of them have changed, right? And if you look at why they've changed, um, maybe there's a couple different reasons for doing so. Maybe at some point after you graduate, you feel like, oh, I picked the wrong major. I really wanted to do this other thing. And I can see a situation where you've got this sunk cost, you went to the school, you got the degree, you've got the diploma on the wall, and so you just continue with this path and hope that it's going to get better at some point in the future. And then there's a specific phrase in here. He says, regrets are especially painful when you abandon a previous plan and feel like you have to run in the other direction twice as fast to make up for the lost time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I feel like that is kind of natural if it's not a perfect fit, and you really have no idea whether this is a perfect fit. So the trick, he says, to accept the reality change and move on as soon as possible.
Yep.
I feel like that one sentence is very simple, but it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
And it again is maybe simple but not easy to do.
Yep.
If you dropped a whole bunch of money, you got student loans, and then you decide, I don't really want to do this thing anymore. What I really want to do is this other thing. To walk away from that and go do the other thing is really scary.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of scenarios where that is actually a terrible idea. Right? It kind of gets into the whole follow your passion mindset stuff that Cal Newport rails against. And I agree with him 100%. You can't just wake up one day and say, I want to be an underwater basket weaver and I'm going to go do this thing.
Yep.
But also, like, that's sort of what I did. I mean, I was at a family business. I was doing stuff online. I was an integrator at a digital marketing firm. And I was like, I really need to give this independent creator thing a shot. I'm going to go do it.
Yep.
And I both feel at different points, I feel regret that I didn't try it sooner, but also gratitude that I actually didn't wait like another 5 to 10 years. And then, cause then there's no way I would have done it then. Yeah. So this is tricky. And again, there's no formula for this. So this is great advice that you're probably like, how the heck do I actually implement this? I don't know that I have anything for you.
I agree. And I don't think he does either, right? Because he doesn't want to get into those practical tips and tricks kind of thing. He talks in here about the sunk cost fallacy, which we've read before, but just in case folks aren't familiar with it, anchoring current decisions on past effort that can't be refunded. So it's basically, oh, well, I bought this technology, I have to keep using it. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you can stop. You can just go like, well, that was a bad purchase. I made a mistake, and we're just gonna throw that out, and we're not gonna pay attention to it. Well, like a degree or an investment decision would be a very similar situation where it's like, well, I went to school for 4 years. I have to do that thing, but I'm miserable every day. And it's like, well, hold on, you don't have to. Let's figure out a way to use that. Or I made this investment decision. I have to stick with it. Well, maybe not. So this is where I kind of get like, what do we do? What do we do with certain things? And like, how do we actually put this stuff into practice? And the answer is, I think it's hard and it depends. And it's the gray area. Like, there is no black and white. So I just think there's nothing you can do about that. Like, there's no way to get around that.
But I do think the one thing that is helpful with the way that it's framed here is to feel like if you find yourself in a situation where you do want to change, that is natural. That's part of the process. There's not something wrong with you. You didn't mess up.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
All right. The next one, chapter 15, nothing is free. Says that every job looks easy when you're not the one doing it. Easy to be an armchair quarterback, I guess, but you can't get the prize without paying the price.
Yep.
Successful investing does have a cost, and you list some things that typically you wouldn't think of. Volatility, fear, doubt, uncertainty, regret, but the bill always does come due. The worthwhile trade-off of fees is clear when you're paying one. And so the goal from this, I think, is to find the price and then pay it, not hope that you're going to catch that lightning in a bottle and, oh, this is the magic formula and everything's going to work. Yep. If there's one encouraging thing for me from this whole book up until this point, it's that there is a very simple, logical explanation for the way that the world works. You may not like that. You may not be able to manipulate it in the way that you want, but it's a system and it works just fine most of the time.
And some would say even when it's not working, like when you have your big crashes or whatever it is, it's actually still working. Like, that's part of the system. It's resetting itself.
Yep.
Yeah. My big takeaway from this chapter was the idea of expect volatility, right? And just be okay with it. And that's part of playing the game. And I go back to these examples that he talked about before. You think about the pharmaceutical drug companies. It's like they understand the price to play in this game is the fact that we're going to spend billions of dollars on things that never work or never reach the market. The cost for a venture capital firm is gonna be, we're gonna invest in a bunch of companies that are gonna go nowhere, or they're gonna fold 6 months after we invest in them, or whatever it is, and that's just the cost of playing the game. And I don't know how happy the people are in those worlds in terms of like, oh, I'm sure they don't want that to happen very often, but they've at least accepted, and the boards that are overseeing them have accepted that's the cost of playing the game. If we want to play this game, we got to deal with that. So I need to think about that too in terms of my financial situation, right? Like there are going to be things that I'm not happy about, but that's just the cost of playing the game. And if I'm not okay with that, I shouldn't play the game.
Exactly. All right, chapter 16 is you and me. And this it links to what you were just sharing about playing the game, because he says that money chases returns to the greatest extent that it can. And this chapter, I think maybe is a little bit hard for. I'm guessing this one was maybe a little bit hard for non-econ miners because of where he talks about bubbles. So bubbles form when the momentum of short-term returns attracts enough money that the makeup of investors shifts from mostly long-term to mostly short-term. So this is an interesting balance because he says in the short term, if an asset has momentum, it's actually not crazy to assume that it will keep moving up in the short term, but it's all based on the time scale. And if you take a long-term approach, then you can see, well, obviously, yeah, it can't just continue at this clip forever because that's going to be unsustainable. And if you don't have a general idea, I think, about how markets work, that argument maybe isn't quite as strong, or you don't quite get the picture of how these bubbles work.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's a whole lot to take away from this other than the line he mentions near the end is don't be swayed by people who are playing a different game than you. So you may have a short-term view, you may have a long-term view. That's fine. Just don't compare your view to somebody else's view who's not measuring for the same things. They're not optimizing for the same things.
That's exactly what my takeaway was, is don't assume that your peer or the person that's talking to you sitting across the table has the exact same goals as you, has the exact same time horizon as you. Assume that like they're on their own trajectory. And that's what makes this game hard, is because in a lot of other places, when I say this game, I mean like the investment game and financial game, is in a lot of other places, like I learned from experience through you. Like you did a thing, so I'm going to ask you about it and I'm going to learn through your experience. And in this situation, that's fine. I can do that if we level set. And if I say like these are my goals, this is my time horizon, and we adjust for those kind of things, but we often don't. Like we don't go into that much detail to level set first. And that's my biggest takeaway, is like stop comparing yourself to others who might be playing a completely different game financially or in the stock market or whatever it might be. The bubble example for a non-finance person that I thought about during this chapter was, do you remember the GameStop stock and how like people were making a run on it a couple years ago? And like
I do remember that.
was
I
it
don't remember the
Reddit?
specifics, but yeah.
Yeah, it was like they were doing it on Reddit, and basically it was a bunch of short-term people just saying, "Listen, we don't really care what happens long term. We just want to keep driving it up and keep making our money, like as the day goes on." So like the GameStop stock, for no reason, for absolutely no reason about the value of the company, just kept going up and up and up and up, and it was just kind of wild how they were manipulating the stock through the internet.
I do remember that. I didn't remember any of the specifics about it, but.
Yeah.
All right. The next one, chapter 17, The Seduction of Pessimism. This is interesting. Like that title, you read that and you're like, what is seductive about being pessimistic? I think most people who consider themselves to be pessimistic probably wish they weren't. Right. So this chapter I found fascinating because it kind of lays out the explanation for why people are generally pessimistic, at least when it comes to money. So he mentions at the beginning that pessimism sounds smarter than optimism. Do you agree with that statement, you think?
I think it sounds more. Did you say smarter?
Yeah.
I think it sounds more important. That's the way I take it, right? Like,
okay.
So like you say something pessimistic, and I'm like, that's more important than you're doing a great job today, Cory. It's like you're about to get fired. Like that's more important, kind of a thing. That's the way I took it. Yeah.
And he defines optimism specifically here, which I think is important to get on the same page. But optimism, he says, is a belief that the odds of a good outcome are in your favor over time, even when there will be setbacks along the way. So optimism, maybe most people would think about that as good things happening without the bad things happening. And that's not what he's saying. Okay. But the difference here, I think, is in the examples he shares. Tell someone that everything's going to be great, they'll shrug you off or offer a skeptical eye. Tell someone they're in danger,
Yep.
and you have their undivided attention.
Yep. Yeah.
Everyone thinks the world is more frightening, violent, and hopeless than it really is. And he mentions that progress happens too slowly to notice, but setbacks happen too quickly to ignore. So all those things, I think, tie together to create like a natural tendency to focus on like the doomsday prophets.
Yep.
And you got to get out now, or you got to buy this now, or whatever. And as he's describing the ideas in this chapter, I had this picture. I don't know, like, as there are people in my life who are getting older, I find I am part of conversations that make me more and more uncomfortable about these crazy things that are happening in the world. And like, I can't believe, that people are doing this and getting away with it. And my response is sort of like, I don't care.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like full on conspiracy theory, although some of it I feel like is borderline. But some of it is just like, they may have legitimate reasons for, these are the way that shady backroom deals go down, and it's not right, but this is what happens in these situations.
Yeah.
And you can be upset about that, or you can, I feel like, have the optimist perspective here, where not everything's going to be great, but overall it's going to be good.
Yep. This is I'm gonna coin a term right now, and I don't know if this is real or not, if I'm really actually coining anything. But when it comes back and it's famous, Mike, just remember that I said it. This is the 24-hour cable news fallacy. Like, that's what I think. I mean, like, that's exactly what he's describing here. It's like, what are we going to do? We're just going to tell you horrible things 24 hours a day. And what are you going to do? You're just going to be glued to the television. Like, and you're just absolutely going to watch it the entire day. And these are, like, I think the gist of some of the people that you're talking about is, I would
100%.
I would suspect they are the 24-hour cable news status, which I have those people in my life too. And it's like, listen, man, just turn off the TV. Like, you don't have to watch that stuff. Like, just turn off the TV. The redeeming part of this chapter for me, like, or the part that I kind of walked away with, was the idea that he says there's a law in economics: extremely good and extremely bad circumstances rarely stay for long, right? That supply and demand adapt in hard to predict ways. And like, that's comforting to me. So when you combine that with the other idea he has in this chapter, and the other idea is basically, we can see this compounding growth trend that then, like, in one day gets absolutely just like completely wiped away. That, like, none of this stuff is going to stay around for a long time. So just be okay with the volatility of it. And then he looks at, and I don't know if he does it in this chapter or if he does it later, but then look at the general pattern. And if you look historically at the economy and at the market, historically, since it was founded, it's gone up and up and up and up and up and up. And there's been blips and there's been wiggles, but it's just continued to go up. So that's the pattern you should look at. So that's kind of what I think about here, is I try not to let the pessimistic, like, one day the economy's going to crash in your lifetime. It's like, yeah, okay, it probably is. But I know that if I'm consistent and slow and I have savings, according to Morgan Housel, everything is going to be okay long term.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I don't know that there's anyone alive who can say with certainty that in the long term, there's enough evidence that the system is going to survive, or enough evidence that this is going to come to a crashing end.
Agreed.
And so why worry about it? One additional note with the 24-hour cable news fallacy. I like that term a lot. And it's not just one side. It is both sides.
Both sides. 100% both sides. Yes.
Yes, 100% both sides. I find myself kind of in a weird, awkward middle place with a lot of the social circles that I'm in.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely see it on both sides.
Yep.
And they're both convinced that they have an inside scoop on what is actually going on, which is the whole purpose of the 24-hour news channels, right? And
Yeah.
their whole goal is to keep you engaged. They don't care how they do it, so
Oh.
they're going to feed you stuff that makes you upset. That's
It,
rooted in fear and of what other people are doing, and that's like the where we are now is like the natural logical uh outcome of that. It kind of leads into the next
yep.
chapter.
Let's go to the. We should just go to the next chapter. Yes, we should. Let's just go to the next
Okay,
chapter.
the next chapter is when you'll believe anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I recognize that I kind of was like poking a bear there, but I think it's important because
Oh
the
yeah,
big
it
thing
is.
from this chapter is that stories are by far the most powerful force in the
Mm-hmm,
economy.
mm-hmm. Well,
The
I mean, think about it. What's the phrase when somebody's gonna release their quarterly results or whatever? It's like you buy on
Yep.
the rumor, sell on the news, or something like that. Isn't that what it is?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, basically, there are markets swing based
Yeah.
on Apple's gonna announce this thing,
Mm-hmm.
or their profits weren't quite as high as everybody predicted they would be, so there's a huge stock sell-off. It's kind of silly, but the interesting thing to me about all that stuff is that those numbers, the data, the figures that you would use to tell the story, you can make data say just about anything you want. You
Mm-hmm.
can use it
Mm-hmm.
to craft any narrative you want. And the key here, I think, is that the more you want something to be true, the more likely you are to believe a story that overestimates the odds of it being true.
Yep.
And he uses a term in this chapter of an appealing fiction, which
Yeah, I
I
like
think
this
is
a lot.
fantastic. An appealing
Mm-hmm.
fiction happens when you are smart, you want to find solutions, but you face a combination of limited control and high stakes.
Yep. Yeah, and you see this in a bunch of different areas where people will make up these things in life because they really, really want them to be true. Like I think about, was it in our last book, Mike, that they talked about the redaction of a bunch of articles, medical articles or something like that, where they
I don't
essentially,
remember.
I'm pretty sure, like they essentially like they did like why are all these um, results coming out successful? Why are all these results coming out successful? It's because they weren't doing real science. They were like,
Mm.
they were looking at the data and saying, what can we find? And then say, was a result of the
Oh
study. And
yeah,
it's
I
like,
do remember that. Yep.
that's not
Yep, you're
true.
right.
This is the exact same thing. Or it's like, I really want this to be true. I really want this to be true. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna find a way to make it true. Like I'm gonna find a way to make it correct. And that's a hard one to overcome because I just think our human nature is we want to be right and we want to be successful. So it's hard to overcome that.
Yep. All
What did you?
right.
I have a question for you.
Oh,
What did you think about some of the like lists that he puts within these chapters? Because like this isn't a chapter, but there's been a bunch of them
yeah.
where he's put them in the list. Like, do you think when he originally was putting this stuff together, like those were individual blog posts that he then like kind of aggregated? Or I'm asking you to speculate here. I don't know if you know the actual answer, but I found it interesting. I didn't find them overly compelling to where I was like, oh, like that list actually makes. I just thought it was interesting the way he kind of embedded lists in some of the chapters.
No, I don't think he was trying to make lists for the sake of, the listicles on
Yeah.
a blog. I think he's thinking like an economist, and he's saying this is what we're seeing, what are the
Hmm.
causes, and he's listing the causes there. I thought the sections, because they're not really lists, but they're like there's reasons
Yeah.
why this is, the argument that he makes. And he'll go through, there's like a header and then a short section, another header, short section. I thought they were fine. I don't think there was anything in those that I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, this makes
Yeah.
so much sense. The stuff that really impacted me from this book was not those lists, but the stories and specific points that he made.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. They're probably just a product of the outline where he was like, "Oh, there's three reasons for this, one, two, three," and he just left those in as like subheaders, which
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense than the way I was thinking about it. So thanks.
Reading some of those sections reminded me a lot of my econ classes when I was in college,
Nice.
because professor's up on the board, he's drawing the supply demand curves. Like, so this is, what we see. And then like, this is why, and he just launches into the explanation. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of lists, though, chapter 19, I think this is the one with the big list. This is all together now. I think this is the one where he talks about his approach to managing money. And then chapter 20 is the
No,
postscript. That's
this
it. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
19 is really just a summary. It's a summary
Yeah,
chapter.
the summary. That's it.
Here are all
That's
the
it.
things I told you. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't have much for this one. I
either.
jotted down a couple of things, but that's basically a summarization of all the rest of the stuff from the book. So
Yep.
I don't know that we need to
No, we're
go
good.
in
We're
to a
good.
whole lot here. Well, one thing actually I'll mention is he says it this way in this chapter, and I don't know that he said it this way somewhere else, but manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night and define the game you're playing. That's the one that I really like. Define the game you're playing. You can play the game any way you want. Just figure out the rules that you want to play by.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So then chapter 20 is Confessions. This is the one where he talks about how he manages his money. And then there's a postscript with a timeline. I don't know that I really cared a whole lot for, this is how I would recommend you manage your money. He didn't get real specific in here either. But he did mention that he doesn't have a mortgage. He talks about how that's actually a bad financial decision, depending on who you ask, because mortgage rates, at least when he wrote it, were really low. So why not take out a mortgage and use that money in some other investment? But he mentions that good decisions are not always rational, and there's something about not having that payment and the freedom that it gives them. So I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yep. I mean, he is very. What I got from this chapter is I feel like he is very honest and authentic about just like, hey, here's the way I think about some of these things. And he admits you might think differently. I might be doing the wrong thing, and I'm totally okay with that. Like he owns it. And he's very authentic. And this chapter right here, I don't want to say like endeared me to him, but it like definitely left a good taste in my mouth at the end of this book, because I was like, oh, I'm following, I'm tracking all this stuff. This stuff's resonating and hitting. And then I was like, oh, and he practices what he preaches, and he is okay with the fact that when he doesn't, he owns that. And I like that a lot. So I like the way he summarized the way he wrapped up the book with chapter 20.
Yep, I do as well. Okay, and then there's the postscript. This is kind of the epilogue, and it's titled A Brief History of Why the U.S. Consumer Thinks the Way That They Do. I don't know that how do you talk about this without just running through the entire timeline? But basically, he's making the case for why the U.S. consumer spends a lot, has a lot of debt, why you shouldn't do that sort of thing.
This is a very interesting postscript. I think it's very interesting. I don't know if it is relevant to the show, like to the podcast. So I'm good with not talking about it. It's just very interesting to think about like the logical chain of events that have led us to where we are today. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. Like I get it now.
Yeah, maybe I'll make an attempt to tell an abbreviated version here.
Okay.
So World War II ends, and to keep the economy afloat, interest rates were kept really low. Pent-up demand for stuff, fed by a credit boom, and a hidden 1930s productivity boom led to an economic boom. So all of the things the industries that had spun up, and all the emphasis on productivity, now they don't have to make airplanes and tanks. What are we going to do with this capacity, right? During that period, debt rises, so does incomes. So the impact isn't really a big deal. 1973-ish, recession begins. 1982 to about 2000, that's when the boom resumes, but there's this gap between the rich and the poor that widens. Before that, it was pretty flat.
Yep.
And then Americans start to stretch beyond their economic capabilities, keep up with the Joneses. We're kind of in this situation where like there's all this momentum. Everybody's got this debt to try to keep up with the people who are at the top. And he mentions like the Tea Party, the Occupy Wall Street, Brexit, and Donald Trump each represents a group shouting, "Stop the ride, I want to get off."
Yep.
And I think that is powerful. That's the big realization here, is that there are a lot of people from very different backgrounds and very different perspectives who are not happy with the way that things are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you do with that. What do you think the general tone is from this last chapter? Is it like a warning? Is it don't worry, it's going to be okay? You
Yeah.
know,
The tone of the last chapter is, I think, take what I've, and he doesn't say this. I kind of wish he explicitly would say this, but take what I've told you in the past and remember that we don't know what's going to happen. There seems to be the water rising on something interesting happening. We don't know what that's going to be, but it's okay. Save, stick to your plan, right? And where I get this from is the last statement. History is just one damn thing after another, right? And I'm like, oh, he's just saying like just stay the course, right? Like stay the course and make, the I don't even want to say saying make the take the suggestions I've given you before and make those decisions. He's just saying like think about what we're doing here and don't go crazy. Like I guess that's my takeaway is like think about what you're doing here and don't go crazy.
yeah. I think as I think about the whole message of the book, actually, let's go into action items
Yeah.
because this is relevant. I think the one thing he's really trying to hammer home is you don't need a reason to start saving, but you should start saving.
Mhm.
So I guess that's one of my action items is to save more.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't know, we haven't, I mean, we have a 401k and we have some savings, but not like a 6-month emergency fund for my creator business stuff. So it's like, that's one of those things where it feels like, oh, that'd be nice if we could have that, but we can't because of the season of life that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of use that as an excuse, like, well, we'll do that later when we are a little bit more stable. You don't have to have that goal of the 6-month emergency fund, though. You don't have to have the goal of once we have this much set aside, get a new vehicle or whatever. That's kind of my big light bulb moment from all of this is like, even if it's just a couple of dollars a
Yep.
month,
Yep.
save something,
Save something.
be intentional about it. So I want to do that. And then the other action item I mentioned earlier was to ask myself the question, how can I stand out? Has nothing to do with actually saving, more to do with just my business and my brand as I make more practical PKM stuff.
Nice.
All right. You got any action items?
I don't. I have no action items for this book, but don't take that as a negative. Like action items come to me as we're doing things and I think about like, oh, I should write that down as something to do. I don't have any action items from this book. Like I don't feel compelled to go do anything or to not do anything or I just don't. Like I am pleased with the fact that I don't have any and I don't have any.
All right. Style and rating. My book, I'll go first.
Okay.
I really like the style of this book. I think Morgan Housel is a great writer, a great storyteller, manages to talk about money and psychology in a fun way. And maybe that's the econ minor in me who is describing that, but I enjoyed this book way more than I thought I would. I picked it because it kept showing up and it's one of those books with would you say 10 million copies sold or something like that? Is like this book should be in the bookworm canon. We should be able to point back to an episode on the psychology of money. But I found myself resisting picking this one up and starting it. And then once I actually started reading it, I wondered why I did that because it was a really easy read, like you said earlier. And he's a good writer. I liked it a lot. I think that even if you have no interest in personal finance, even if you don't care about business, even if you don't care about economics and markets and things like that, I feel like this is one of those books where you should eat your vegetables and you'll be better off for it. And everyone should read this book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like if you're interested in personal finance, where do you go? There are different personalities that talk about things from different perspectives. Like I've gone through the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University stuff. I think this is better than that. That is more tactical. Set up the accounts, set aside this amount of money, whatever. But we've been through that, and honestly, it didn't stick. And the psychology piece is the reason why. Like you go through it, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, but I don't feel it enough. There's not
Yeah.
enough motivation there.
Yeah.
Totally different after reading this book. I mean, after reading this, I want to budget. I want to set up the accounts. I want to go through it with my wife. I was telling her about it. There are very few bookworm books that I'm like, hey, you should read this and then
Mhm.
we should talk about it. But this was one of them. And as I started talking to her about some of the things that I was getting from it, because that was a natural question, it's like, oh well, why? What do you like about it? I shared some things, just like, oh, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
So I think I think it's a great book that honestly, I mean, this is written, I would say, to a US consumer
Yeah.
because there's so much emphasis on like the US market. I think a lot of the principles can apply no matter where where you live in the world. But as a US consumer, I feel like this should be required reading in high school or college or something when people are trying to figure out what they're going to do when they grow up, and you mentioned going to college and learning all the life skills. Learning how to manage money is an important life skill. This should be on the list.
Yep.
Um, it feels weird to give a money book 5 stars, but I'm going to do it.
Yep.
I think this is a 5-star book. I think it's really good. And the money piece is almost secondary. Like you'll get a lot out of it, but if you're like, oh, I don't want to read a money book, you're not reading a money book.
Mm.
You're reading a very good book that is going to teach you about the psychology of
Yes.
money and help you manage your finances better.
I mean, Mike, you said so many things that I could not agree with more. Like I mean, it was almost like you were in my head as you were giving your style and rating. It was an interesting book. The stories were interesting. The narrative weaved together. It wasn't like overly overt where it felt, like insulting, but at the same time, things connected back and forth. And what I think is like a pretty expert way, the way things connected back and forth, because there were times where Mike would say, as we were transitioning to the next chapter, oh, and that actually leads us into the next chapter, but that wasn't on purpose. Like he and I didn't plan that. It's just the way the chapters flowed. You would think about one thing and then move on to the next chapter. Like, and that was what he wanted to talk about in the next chapter. I think this should 100% be required reading in high school, not in college. College is too late. You need to read this in high school. I don't know if people would take it serious in high school, but I think it's without a doubt like, my children need to read this book before they graduate high school, just as a way to like think about, reasoning and thinking about volatility and thinking about, yeah, money. But like you said, I told you, it's like you're in my head. It's like a money book that's not about money. It's about like other stuff, and money is just the context in which we're going to talk about it. I told you before, I think Housel is authentic. I think he owns what he owns, and he's okay with that. Like he's totally fine, just kind of having an opinion on things and telling you that. I think he gets out of the way. He does a good background from like a history standpoint in that postscript. Like I really really like this book. I think it has broad appeal. So, regardless of the types of books you like to read, this is just one where if you just decide, "Hey, I've got 10 minutes, I'm going to read a chapter on it." You can do that. Like the chapter will only take you 10 minutes, maybe 20 at the most depending on the chapter, and you'll be like, "Huh, hadn't thought about that way." Or, "Yeah, like that's a good way to think about that." Or, "I completely disagree with that. I think he's way wrong," but blah 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 blah, whatever it might be. Like Mike, I loved this book. Like I thought this book was phenomenal. This is easily a 5-star book to me. This is one that I debate whether or not I should put a calendar reminder in like 2 years and say like, hey, read that Morgan Housel book again, just to see what you get out of it the second time.
Yeah.
I just really like this book. So without a doubt, 5-star book,
Nice. We got a golden book.
golden book.
All right. Let's put the psychology of money on the shelf. What's next, Cory?
Okay, next is one that I'm a little bit nervous about, but we're going to see how it goes. It's called Uncommon Sense: Rethinking Ordinary Problems in Extraordinary Ways. So this individual was, I believe, the president of Johns Hopkins, if I'm remembering that correctly. I might have gotten that wrong, but yeah, president of Johns Hopkins University, and he's going to use examples, and he's going to use different, fields: medicine, engineering, entrepreneurship, academic leadership. But he's also going to use examples from famous people as well to help us think about problems, ideas, ambition, those kind of things in different ways. So, uncommon sense, I worry, and here's my worry. I worry that the title is going to be more intriguing than the actual book, and I hope I'm not wrong. But like I'm pretty excited to read this one. So the next one's gonna be Uncommon Sense by William Brody. If you're reading with us, pick that one up for us. Mike, what's after that?
All right. After that, we're going to read an oldie but a goodie, hopefully. The Goal, the 40th anniversary edition.
I think
This
I
is
think it's a goodie. So I'm just gonna tell you right now, I think it's a goodie.
okay. The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt.
Yep. Eliyahu Goldratt.
And this is really on the theory of constraints. This came up in the last book that we read. And then shortly after that, actually, as I was reviewing that episode, I came across a section where you were glowing about this book. And I was like, do we need to cover this for Bookworm? And you were like, absolutely, I would do it. Not the one I'm picking for next time, but it's on the short list. And then shortly after that, I was listening to a Nathan Barry Show episode. Nathan is the CEO of Kit, and his podcast is really about like creator systems, kind of right in my wheelhouse. I like it a lot. He had Layla Pompier on the episode, and they brought up the Goal. So Layla has a company called, I want to say Process. I don't know. I'll put the link to it in the show notes. But basically, she helps business owners create business systems. And so they're geeking out on systems, and the Goal comes up, and they're both talking very highly of it. And we had just talked about it. So I have this book somewhere. It came in the mail, and I was like, why would anyone ever want to read this? But now we're going to read it. And hopefully have a good conversation about it. Another one that has over 10 million copies sold.
Yep.
So there's
Very
that.
successful. Very successful book.
All right. Got any Gap books?
I do. So I said last time that I was reading some nonfiction stuff. I like to kind of preview some nonfiction things for my boys before we turn them loose on it. I previewed one that it's called the Kingdom series, called the Kingdom's Dawn. And in this one, this week, I'm probably going to be previewing. It's called The Door Within. So each of these are the first book in a series of 3 or 4 or 5 books. I forget how many each of them have. But this will be called The Door Within. And I full disclosure, Mike, I am previewing these while I run as an audiobook because they are fiction books. They are not nonfiction books. And fiction books are 100% audible worthy.
That is fine. But I will say, if you want to recommend a book for a bookworm, do not recommend a fiction book.
Correct.
Do not recommend an audible.
Correct. Both of these are true. I can confirm those.
Yes. Yeah, we'll leave that there. I understand, like, some people need that's the only way they can consume books. Totally fine. If you have the option to read the physical pages or even the words on your screen, I would say you're going to retain more from the books if you do it that way.
Thank you for throwing me a solid there. I appreciate you. You threw me a solid there. Yeah.
You're welcome. All right. I have no Gap books because the Goal, it says, is 408 pages.
Super fast. It's a super fast 408.
Okay.
I don't remember or not, but
that's the first time I've heard that.
I'm encouraging you.
It's super fast 400
super
page
fast
book.
408. Right. You'll fly right through it.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll have one when I come back from my trip to North Carolina then. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you specifically to the Bookworm Pro members who help us keep the lights on. It really means a lot to us. If you want to help support the show, you can go to bookworm.fm/pro. $7 a month gets you access to a longer ad-free pro show. Today we talked about some of the stuff that I am learning from working with a virtual assistant. You also get a bootleg of the show that gets released right after we record it. So basically you get the episodes 1 to 2 weeks early. There's a wallpaper I put together, my reading masterclass. And like I said, that's $7 a month. If you want to help support the show, go to bookworm.fm/pro.
And if you're reading along with us, pick up Uncommon Sense by William R. Brody, and we'll talk to you next time. To the folks on the live stream, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.